Greetings and salutations. Welcome to this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Before we begin, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share the show with a friend. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. My guest today received his MFA in dramatic writing from USC in 2007, where he was mentored by former guest Oliver Mayer, Valina Hasu Houston, and Luis Alfaro. His plays, including Chasing Monsters, Circus Ugly, Swarm Cell, and Scar Tissue, have been produced in various theaters across Los Angeles. Scar Tissue was subsequently published in the Best American Short Plays of 2010 to 2011. He developed his play Carnivores as an inaugural member of the Latino Theater Alliance Writers Circle, and is a tenured faculty at Glendale Community College. His play Level Up opens at the Latino Theater Company in downtown Los Angeles on April 4th and runs through May 3rd. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Gabriel Rivas Gómez.
Hello.
Thanks for coming on.
Of course. I'm glad to be here.
So, what drove you into playwriting?
Well, an accident.
Okay.
As an undergrad, I didn't study theater outside of Shakespeare courses, and I think I took a playwriting course or a multicultural theater course. I was teaching high school as an English major for a few years while my wife was working on her MFA. And as she was finishing up her program, she said, well, if you want to go to graduate school, it's probably best that we do this before having kids because that complicates things. And I kind of on a whim applied to different theater programs and got lucky enough to get in and was playing catch up as soon as I got there, because the people who were in the class with me had been studying theater for most of their lives. And I felt like, particularly for the first probably year and a half of the program, felt like I was continuously behind and playing catch up.
But was your main focus playwriting?
Yeah, it was the dramatic writing program. So it was a blend of playwriting and screenwriting and writing for TV.
So why go in that direction, having just done a handful of
because it was something I enjoyed and thought that it would be interesting to study, and I think I applied not really thinking I would get in. Okay,
and then where did things go from there after you got in, after you played catch up?
After I got in
and leveled up.
After I played catch up, I think it took me a little while to figure out how to put a play together. I think for the portfolio that they wanted me to submit to USC, I don't even think I submitted scenes. I think it was short stories. So the first part of it was actually kind of figuring out how to actually mechanically tell a story on stage. And then I think it was like the second year, probably the second half of the second year and going into the third year, that I started to get a sense of feeling what my voice is as a writer. And that was, I think, that was a substantial step for me.
What was that moment when it finally clicked and you realized that you knew how to tell a story? And was there any particular thing that was that trigger?
I think it was probably studying with Luis Alfaro, who
me and my gringo pronunciation, apologies.
That's okay. He had us come in and he wanted us to pitch an idea of what we wanted to work on. And I had an idea of a Greek adaptation, and he is like Mr. Greek adaptations. And he very quickly dismissed that and said, I don't think that scares you. I don't think that that's something that, agitates the nerve that we want to agitate. And challenged me to think of something along those lines. Asked me, what type of story would scare me. And I lost my father when I was 19. He was coming home from roofing a house, and a car broke down on the freeway, and a woman who was high on speed hit him. And it was really traumatic. And so I told him that, and he said, this is perfect. You need to write everything. Tell me everything about this. Write it down. And I did. And it was a lot. And he challenged me. He wanted me to kind of write everything, and I did. He then asked me to read it out loud to share with him and my classmates. There was only 3 of us. I did. It was emotional. I think I was throwing darts with my eyes at him because I didn't know I was going to be put on the spot like that. Sure. And he then challenged me and said, this is what you need to be going after. And I told him, I'm not interested in, I don't want to tell that story. He said, no, you don't have to tell that story. Tell a story that agitates the same nerve. And I ended up writing a play called Circus Ugly, which is about a young woman with paper skin who goes to a town of freaks looking to find her mother, and meets a homeless artist who paints with trash. And the 2 of them become I don't know what I would call them, friends, opportunists, where he paints secrets all over her paper skin, and this is the relationship that's formed. And I needed, I think, to write that play both because I needed to get some of my own trauma out, and I think because it kind of very much became in some ways the type of stories that I'm interested in telling. I lean much more surreal than I lean towards realism. And I think that was the moment where I thought, okay, I have a handle on who I am as a writer.
Okay. What was the nerve that was agitated with Circus Ugly?
Circus Ugly, it was very much a character in search of a parent who was no longer around. It explored a lot of what I had written about was the feeling freakish in different times, like graduating from college and having, dads and grads, nights at the local bars. And my friends who were great, and understood that I didn't have a dad to take me to the different drinks. They're like, "We are your dad today, and we're taking you." But it was great, but also it felt really awkward, right? Sure. And also just some of the things that came up in having to start to make phone calls in the aftermath. My dad was working construction and didn't keep wonderful notes, and that's just kind of the way he was. And it was just kind of, a handshake and, I put this roof on, I know you're going to pay me back in time and whatever. And so as I would call people, there were a few people that would say, well, did he keep records of this? And I said, no, but I helped put that roof on your house and we could use the money. And they said, well, if you don't have a record of it, I think we're done. This conversation is done here. And just kind of how callous people were. And it was kind of, eye-opening. Sure. So in Circus Ugly, everything is for sale, and secrets and truth are probably most for sale. And again, it's not a play that I would write today, but I think it's a play I needed to write then. Sure. Okay.
Where did what were the other obstacles that you had to overcome as a writer once you got the story thing down?
Sure.
What were the other things you struggled to get?
So I wrote for a while, and then between I've got 3 children. I'm working a full-time job. Nearly died of sepsis a few years back, and there was just a lot of things happening that made writing nearly impossible. Mm-hmm. To the point that I told my wife, as she brought it up, that I didn't know that I considered myself a writer anymore. I thought I considered myself someone who used to write, because it had been so long since I had written anything. So getting back into that, and with Level Up is the first thing I've written in a while, and it was really nice to see that muscle still works, because the challenge, I think, had just been finding the time to write, finding the space to write, tapping back into, not just the mechanics of it, but the work ethic of it. Sure. And thinking that it was something that was past tense.
I want to get into that some more, but let's kind of turn into Latino the Writer Circle and how you got involved in that. How did that come about?
Again, very lucky. I had been part of the Latino Theater Alliance and written a play as part of the Nest, the Writers Alliance that they had, and had a reading there. And I had a different play called Disability read at the Latino Theater Company. And so I knew them, and I knew a lot of the people that, make things happen there. Years ago, they reached out to me when they were forming the Circle of Imaginistas and interviewed, and I thought it would only be fair that I be upfront and say, because they were talking to me, what have you been writing? What have you been up to? And I said, I'm eager to start writing again, I think, but I haven't been writing. And I think it's only fair that I be upfront with this. And so it didn't work out there initially. Then I went on sabbatical for work at Glendale Community College, and I was supposed to write a new class to be taught and a new play. And as luck would have it, this is when COVID hits and when everything is shut down. And so for that, my sabbatical year, the majority of my time was spent homeschooling my kids. And then as my sister contacted me and said, if you're homeschooling kids, can you take my nephew too? And I said, of course. And that's a full-time job, especially because they're all different ages. They all had different things they needed to learn. And so I came back to campus, and my sabbatical committee said, we see this class that you've written, that looks great, but you also are supposed to have a script. And I said, well, I've been homeschooling this whole time. There wasn't time. Right. And they said, well, we understand, but we do need a script. And I think this was in probably December, right before the end of fall semester. And they said, well, we can give you a couple months, a window, but we're going to need something. And literally, I think it was within the week. It was a few days later. Jose Luis at the Latino Theater Company reached out to me and said, would you be interested in writing a multi-generational play? And I said, hell yes. And I said, I'm doing this once and I'm double dipping, and this is going to count for both. And what was great is I had most of my stuff up until now has been pretty dark. And so my kids, who are teens now at the time when things were coming out, weren't old enough to come to see the plays. And I had promised them that I would write them something that they could come see. So this sounded great. And he said, well, why don't you think of an idea and pitch it? And I said, I've already got an idea. Let's do this. And I pitched the idea for Level Up. And it's a co-commission between the Latino Theater Company and Children's Theater in Minneapolis. Yeah. So I also pitched the idea to Peter Brocious, who was then the artistic director. They all were interested in the idea, so they said, this is great, why don't you move forward, we'll get the contract going. And I think I had a first draft of the play before they had the contract ready, because I had to be in go mode, right? I knew I had a deadline, and I didn't need a polished draft for the sabbatical committee, I just needed a draft. And so because the alternative was they were going to dock my pay since I hadn't fulfilled my sabbatical requirement. And I said, that's not an option. So powered through and got a really, really overly written first draft, but it was a first draft. Right. And then we ran from there.
Where does Carnivores come to play in this regard?
Carnivores is a play that I wrote for the Latino Theater Alliance. Right. And it is a play about LA Family Court, where I was actually at another a play at Boston Court, and this came up as part of the talkback, something that I didn't know, but that as people are going to court to fight for custody of their kids, they are asked not to bring their kids with them to court, and many of them, either because they don't speak the language or because they don't have childcare options, bring their kids with them anyway. And so for a while, I guess there were kids just running around the courthouse, And then what they started doing is having social workers and then kind of people who could teach art. And they would give kids like art supplies and toys. And what ended up happening is you ended up watching a lot of them, their processing of trauma through play and art. And that was what Carnivores was. It was the play that looked at these kids, but played by adult actors.
So was that the whole, that kind of forced you out of that rut, is just have not fulfilling that whole thing?
You mean not fulfilling the sabbatical contract? Yes, because there was not an option of not doing it. And so in some ways it was kind of, I don't know if nice is the word, but I didn't have the option of saying, I can wait to do this. It can wait. It was, This has to happen now. And there was a sense of urgency. And I was really interested in the story. And actually, I had like the premise of the story. And one of the things that I knew first with this play was the ending. And I think I was feeling superstitious, and so I was thinking, well, I don't want to write the ending until I've got at least more of the play.
Okay.
And then I got stuck and said, well, to hell with it, I'm going to write the ending. And so I wrote the ending, and I liked it. And the ending is more or less the same even today. I mean, I've made some trims, but it's structurally the same ending. And then once I wrote that, it started opening up. Okay, I think I need this, and it was really a let's connect the dots and figure out. I like where this ends.
Sure.
I know where I'm beginning. Now, how do I just get there? How do I get from point A to point Z?
Did you have any moments during that time where it was like that the whole beginning wound up changing or anything like that, or it's just like? Everything fell right into place. Like, okay,
no, there was
gaps. I just got to put, fill
yeah. My process is such, and I know this by now, is that I have to overwrite in the beginning and then cut. And particularly in this play, I had to overwrite because the idea is putting a video game on stage, putting a virtual open world video game on stage. And I needed to figure out what that was. And so a lot of that overwriting was stuff that has now been cut or trimmed, because what we can do visually does that work. But I needed a sense of what this was before I could know what to cut. And actually before, so we did a first draft of the play, had a reading of the play, just kind of very informally, got notes, and then was back in conversation with Jose Luis and Peter Brocious, and we set up a workshop to be done in Minneapolis. And it was still too long. And literally, I think this was maybe 15 minutes before we were going to do the reading, Jose Luis comes up and says, there's something I need you to do. And I said, what? And he said, I think you need to cut this scene. And I said, like, the whole scene? He said, yeah, I think you need to cut the whole scene. And he said, here's why. I think it's interesting, but it's everything in it has already been taken care of in other scenes. And he said, this could give you an opportunity to hear it without that scene. And if you miss it, you can always put it back. Right. So we did. We cut the whole scene, and I think it was a long scene. It was like a 12-page scene. And we just cut the whole thing. And I said, okay, well, this means there's a few other lines we need to cut as well, because they reference this. We cut the whole scene 15 minutes before we read it. I didn't miss it. And we went from there. So there's been a lot of things like that. That's the only time where an entire scene was cut. But a lot of scenes have been reworked. A lot of what I've done has trimmed a lot of the dialogue about the game, and I think that's been the right call, because each time I've cut it, I haven't missed it, and that's usually been my rule. Like, if I cut something and I miss it, well, then we can look at bringing it back. But if I don't miss it, then it doesn't really need to be there anyway.
Yeah, there's just a few workshops that I do for high school theater festival, and convincing some of the students is like, look, just get rid of it. If it changes the story, put it back in. But if it doesn't change anything, then, and I think it's one of those things that it's just, I don't know. For those guys, I think it's a little bit more like, no, I need it. It's one of those, what other elements, like once you got through the storytelling, were there other elements that you had to work through as well to really learn? Or is this once you got the story down, your dialogue was great, everything just kind of fell into place?
For this play, for level,
all of your playing, from when you first started. Once you got that
it's always something. I think one of the things that I took, I think from Oliver and Valina, but particularly from Luis Alfaro, is the idea that the stories that I tell are less about plot and more about character. And I think that's even now, I think that's still my interest in knowing who these people are and understanding what's happening really from a sense of what does this character want, like, and what are they missing and what are they afraid of, and letting that dictate story as opposed to plot points.
How much of those things make it into the dialogue? Or is it just something that you're just like, it's all subtext, but I know this about this character? Or do you really like kind of?
I think almost always, but it's in different ways. So at a play like Circus Ugly, almost everything is subtext. Like I would say probably 80% of what the characters say is a lie. And then every now and then they hit on a truth. In something like Level Up, I think it's a lot more. I think that the characters, ironically, even in the virtual world, I think are most honest, because Desi, who is our lead in the play, is trans and afraid to be out with her family. In real world scenes, is covered up and is in a hoodie and is trying to keep things quiet and secret. Mm-hmm. And in her virtual world is a female warrior with butterfly wings and feels comfortable expressing who she is, and also is very comfortable in this world. And so I think is more honest.
When you say 80% of what they say is a lie, do you reveal that those are lies to your audience? Does the audience know those are lies?
Eventually, yes.
Okay.
Eventually, yes.
How do you make that reveal?
In Circus Ugly, the kind of what we build to is that one of the characters has been painting all over the young woman with paper skin, and each one is a secret, but it's really like a story that he's telling. And then there's a betrayal, and in the ending of the play, he gets like paint thinner and he erases each story as he tells the truth. Like, this is what really you want the truth, and the truth is that he is not this person with powers. He's not a person who's special. He's a kid who's been abused and he's been left behind, and then so he leaves her with none of his art on her body, and so that's kind of what we work up to.
How do you stage that?
That's a director's problem.
Good for you.
I love that. I love writing things that some people will look at and say that's unstageable, and then I love finding the people who say I can't wait to figure out how we do that.
Yeah, that's another one that, it's just like some like just play, just stuff that I've read just through the festivals that I've done and even those workshops as well, is that it's just you don't need all this stuff.
Yeah.
Don't do somebody else's job. So yeah. I am good for you for saying that's not
well,
right.
and throughout my plays, it's always far less important to me that things look realistic and much more important that they feel real. And so to me, that's actually one of the things that I love about theater as opposed to film, is that most of the time in film, things have to look real. Not always, but most of the time. And in theater, I think some of my favorite plays and favorite moments have been moments where things don't look real, but they hit you in the gut. And finding those creative ways of putting those moments on stage, to me, is actually what's most interesting.
Right. Yeah, I think that, again, going to the festivals, like when I read, actually, not even the festivals, when I read anything, I'm always staging it.
Mm-hmm.
How do I pull this off, or what is it? And even if it's more complex, I'm like, I don't,
Mm-hmm.
To me, there is no. Yeah, you gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
Except for one. There was one play that I did read, and I'm not the biggest fan, and forgive me, it comes up a lot. I'm not the biggest fan of personification.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody did one with, it was fictional characters from a children's book,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm just like, I could figure a way out, but I don't know. The personification of animals or inanimate objects just doesn't do it for me.
Uh-huh.
That's just me. So, so I don't know if I wouldn't be able to figure it out. I just think it's like, I don't want to figure it out.
You don't want to figure it out. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm trying to be mean or dismissive, but like, I don't, unless you're going to have full blown animal costumes, like those they're well known children's book characters.
Yeah.
And I'm beating around the bush a little bit, because just in case that person listens, and he probably will, and then he'll call me out on it. But I don't want it to be like, where it's a tale in like cat ears or something like that, or something to that extent, or or like the whole body costume, but then the actor's face and painted or something like that. I don't know. That's just me. So I guess with things like that, those are the only times I really draw a line where I'm not quite sure I could.
Yeah.
I want to do it.
Yeah.
Where do how does the dialogue work for you?
Dialogue.
The approach, rather than just how does it work for you?
Yeah. So when this is something I learned with Luis, is again in writing Circus Ugly, when I wrote about what happened with my father and the aftermath and all of that. He said, well, okay, now we're getting somewhere. And I said, I'm not writing that. I don't want to. Right. And he said, no, you don't have to write that, but agitate from the same nerve. And I was starting to feel pressure because my classmates are bringing in scenes, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I finally came to him and I said, okay, I had a dream, and it was about this young woman with paper skin and a homeless artist that paints with trash. But that's all I have. He's like, this is great. We're in a great spot. Right. And he started having me write almost like David Letterman style. Like, give me top 10 moments that they felt embarrassed. Give me the top 10 moments when they felt like they missed something. Give me top 10 memories with their father, with their mother. Like, it was just like my assignments were lists and lists and lists. And what happened is I started to get a sense of who these characters were. And I will I start there, like with not necessarily lists, but just kind of doodling and listening. And I will start to hear characters in their voice. And that's usually where dialogue comes from. And I have to listen or they stop.
For sure.
So that's a lot of the process for me in coming up with dialogue, in thinking, not only how does a person talk, but what do they have to say, and what do they want, what scares them. That's usually a really big one, is trying for me to figure out what scares this character, because then dramatically speaking, we're going to have to come up against that fear at some point, right? And so that's a lot of the process for me. With this play, with Level Up, one of the added perks is that my attempts to speak like a 12-year-old are going to fail across the board. And so we've been pretty lucky that we've worked with the same actress in each of the readings and now in the production. and she's wonderful. And she's now at a point where she's comfortable enough kind of calling me out and saying, I think at one point I had a line where she yells at her brother, "You're such a pick-me." And she stops and she goes, "Gabe, pick-me is like, that's like so 2 months ago. Can I say something else?" And I said, "Absolutely. What you tell me, what would she say in this moment?" And then she would. And then and at this point she has stopped asking permission, because I've been like, if this is something where it sounds like an old person trying to talk like a young person, talk like a young person. And so there's been a little bit of that, and I think it's been made better because of that.
Interesting.
But that's less about what is this character after, and more what are the exact words that this character would say.
Sure, yeah.
But it's been really helpful.
I would imagine so. So is that where when you say you have to keep writing, you have to keep listening because then they just stop?
Uh-huh.
Is that where the overwriting for you comes in? It's like just this continual, and whether or not it's too much, you can go back and trim that.
Sometimes it is, yes. Sometimes it is. Sometimes the overwriting is me needing to find what actually is. I've written scenes before where I think the scene is about one thing, and then I overwrite it and I trim it down, and I realize, oh, this is actually about something else. And maybe it belongs in this play, or maybe it doesn't. Or maybe this informs what this character is actually in pursuit of. Or maybe this informs what this character is trying to avoid, or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then my guess is that you don't edit as you write.
I try not to, because I think it's very easy to get trapped on the treadmill of, no, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. I took a songwriting course years ago, and I steal this from this teacher even now when I'm working with my creative writing students, because I thought he put it really well. He said, imagine that your brain has two parts. You have the artist and you have the critic. And the artist part of your brain is responsible for generating ideas. And little kids are very, very good with this. So you give them a cardboard box, and it's a castle, it's a fort, it's a car, it's whatever they need it to be. But they also are the ones that are going to stack a stool on top of a box, on top of a ladder, like my son did trying to get cookies in the pantry. And you wish there was a voice that said, this is a bad idea. You're going to break your neck. And that's the critic part of our voice, of our brain, right? That says no, that says this is not a good idea. And I think the danger sometimes, and the way I find that I can get myself blocked, is that I let the critic take the wheel too early. I think I need both of them, but I need to let the artist kind of run wild a little bit first, and then the critic can come in and clean up and say, not working, not good, but these pieces are. Because I find if I let the critic drive too early, I end up with a blank page, and because nothing's going to come out perfect.
Right.
So, yeah, I try not to edit as I go. I try to just understand that I'm going to write messy and that I can clean up later.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you've really given some really great examples of tools to be put in a toolbox. Any other goodies like that?
I mean, linking up with that, I tell my students now that it takes guts to write messy. And because we're afraid of judgment, and so we judge ourselves. And I also like to think of it as when we start writing, sometimes it's like getting into the shower, and you have to let the cold water run a bit before it gets hot. And if you're always turning the water off, it's never going to get hot. So whether I'm actually working with my creative writers or like comp classes, I really stress that part of the process is that messy part, because you can't fix a blank page. You can fix a crappy page.
Right.
You can fix a page that's flawed, but I think a lot of times it's very easy to fall into that trap of, I need this to be perfect. I need this to be perfect. And for me, at least, that never works. That's the fastest way for me to get myself stuck.
How many passes do you make before you decide that it's time to hear it?
That is a good question. I don't have an exact answer. Sometimes it's simply when I have the opportunity. I would say the earlier I am in the process, the more likely I am to turn to people I trust, even if they're not necessarily right for the roles. But people whose thoughts I trust are really going to help me ground what I'm writing. And so I'm really going to early readings where I know, like, where I might not even have a firm handle yet on what this is. It's helpful for me to lean on those people that I trust, right? And bring them to my home and feed them and hear what we hear and talk. When I feel, I mean, part of it is also opportunity. So with this process, it was, I think maybe 3-4 drafts before we did the first workshop. And then heard the workshop, made a lot of adjustments in the workshop. Again, largely being with really smart actors, and finding this idea that sounded good in my head is not working, with actors here. Making changes, having to deal with questions. We then came home, got some more notes. Turned around another workshop in LA. Each step has been, trying to figure out, for me, a different character's journey. And so I remember, I think as we were heading towards the LA workshop, I felt like Desi's older brother Memo had a lot to do, but I wasn't clear on what his journey was. And so I really, as I was revising, I was like, he's not the main he's not our protagonist, but he is a main character, and we need to see that arc. And I actually at this point feel like his arc is really well defined. And then the next time it was, okay, who's this character? What's their arc? And trying to find, even if it's a small arc for every character in the play.
That was one of the things I was going to ask as well. Will you listen to over some of your overwritten drafts first, or will you go through and say, okay, I think I've made enough passes and trimmed enough to where I think I can hear it now? Or do you say, I want to hear it because I know, yeah. Does that make sense?
Yes. The very first draft is usually just for me.
Sure.
Sure. I write it, put it away for a little bit, read it again, and usually I can already start to sort things out, like this is too much, this is too much, this is too much. Or, like, how did we get from here to here? There seems to be something missing, The very first time I heard Level Up, this fell in my lap because I had submitted a draft to get notes, and we had an Imaginistas retreat, and another member of the writers group had to cancel last minute because it had a family emergency. So Jose Luis pulled me aside and said, I've already paid actors to be here. They are not the correct actors for your play, but they're here. Would you want to hear your play? We can print it out right now. So I said, sure. Let's hear it. I don't know that I would have said I'm ready to have it read, but it was opportunity and a chance to hear it and get notes. And it was very much overwritten, and that was very clear, but I heard it and I thought, okay, I really need to trim this, and I really need to trim these areas in particular.
When you do events like that, do the actors... Do they have the opportunity to get feedback? Or
yes, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and I find, this is probably going to be the most obvious thing in the world, but I really love working with smart actors. Sure. And when I'm in a room, particularly with smart actors, I really need to listen to smart actors. So anything from, if an actor is stumbling over lines that I've written, I need to assume it's because I've written something that's clunky.
Sure.
But also, bigger than that, as actors start asking questions, why would I be doing this? Or why is this character doing this? Or, taking those notes in has really been super helpful in this process. with the first time that as we were in the workshop process in Minneapolis, the first workshop for Level Up, I ended up getting questions from an actor, and the revisions based off of those questions are now still very firmly in the play and are core to the play. And this wasn't something that I had imagined early on. And so yes, I love hearing actor feedback, and it's, I think, part of my job to listen to actors. It doesn't mean I always agree with them, but my dad used to tell me, if you walk into a bar and 5 people tell you you're drunk, it might be because you're drunk. And if I'm in a room with actors and 3 of them are confused by a scene that I've written, it's probably because I've written a confusing scene and should look at that.
What makes a smart actor in your mind?
A smart actor is someone who... That's a good question. A smart actor is someone who has a sense of storytelling.
Okay.
A smart actor is someone who I think is looking for what's motivating their behavior. And I think also understands that their acting is not bound by their lines. So I think the smartest actors I've been around have been able to be in a scene silently and still pull attention when they need to without even speaking. And I think that comes back to them knowing who their character is, what their character's after, how they're going to get it, and understanding kind of the place in the story. And the smart actors that I work with will push my work, and I love it. I think that
when you say push your work, how do you mean?
Because they will find the holes in the story, and they
okay.
will find, the areas that are inconsistent, and they will find, they'll present challenges that will make the story better, that will make the play better.
Sure. How do you achieve an arc?
I think it comes back to what does a character want and what are they willing to do to get it. Mm-hmm. And then I know it's screenwritery terms, but what does a character need? Right. So in Level Up, this is a character our main character, who is living in a virtual world because she doesn't feel like she can come out to her family. And she goes on this journey to save her dying dog. At least she can do this virtually, but is powerless to do this in the real world. I've gotten the note before that said, well, ultimately, this is a story about her and her father. And what if we just make this about her wanting to have this conversation with her father? And I've always felt we don't really have a play if she's at the point where she's ready to talk to her father.
Right.
So in Level Up, her want is to save her dog, and it's urgent and it's desperate. And in going on this journey, I think she has to understand how to save herself.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah. But that's not what she's after at the beginning.
Sure.
Yeah.
Does an arc always equal change?
I think it always equals at least an attempt at change. I think I've written character arcs where the character tries to change and fails, but I think that there is an attempt, at least. I think it's often change, but not always.
Okay. I want to shift a little bit. I want to talk about, well, first of all, I suppose, finding your opportunities, and then also I want to know about submitting to for publication. Mm-hmm. So where have you found your opportunities, or just like I've written something and just has it always been an accident?
No, it hasn't always been an accident. But the opportunities that I've had have largely come from communities that I've been a part of. Okay. Much more than like blind submissions.
Sure.
And then this also led to the play that I've had that was published. Dr. Jorge Huerta came to see my play Scar Tissue, which was up at Company of Angels in downtown LA. And he wanted to have lunch with me after, and he loved it. And he said, well, why aren't the bigger theaters paying attention to your work? And I said, because they don't know who I am. And he said, well, we can change that. And so he became somebody who was contacting people and saying, this is somebody who you should know. We set up a reading at University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. We set up other readings. It's largely been that. It's been people that I have really been fortunate to meet, who have seen my work, who have appreciated my work, and they then put their network to work because they feel like, okay, this is a voice that should be heard. And he also was, I think, the person who put me on Jose Luis's radar years ago, and eventually that became an invitation to be part of their Playwrights group, which became an invitation to be part of the Imaginistas group. And then for we're thinking about this particular group, I think one of the things that I've really appreciated is there are currently 11 of us in the group, and after this season, 8 of us will have had our projects produced, and the remaining 3 are on track to be produced soon.
Okay.
Which I think is kind of unheard of, because a lot of times commissions come and go. You get the commission and then it sits on a stack somewhere. And so I think it's really kind of amazing, because it frees us up, because we don't see each other as competition. Mm-hmm. We see each other as our people, that that we are pulling on the same side of the rope. And I think that that's been great. I think that that then makes the opportunity better, because I've been in plenty of rooms where I feel like the people around me are my competition, and I'm sure they feel the same way. And it's really hard to be creative in those environments, for me at least.
How do you overcome that?
How do I overcome that? I mean, it ends up being much more of a lonely process, because it ends up being, I need to do this. I am a competitive person, so sure. I think that there is a part of me that is like, well, I need to compete now. But I think I write at my best when I feel like the people that the people in the room are also creative people who are pulling for my success like I'm pulling for theirs.
Yeah. So when does that when is that just it, because you feel like there's more support from the other group, or where? Well,
it certainly makes it so that I feel like I can believe the feedback.
Okay.
Part of what happened at USC is when we would take classes in our theater cohort, and there were 3 of us, there was a level of trust established, so that I knew the people who were giving me notes were doing it with best intentions. Mm-hmm. Conversely, when we would take classes in the cinema school, it was very cutthroat.
Yeah, I can see
and
that.
So a lot of the notes, a lot of what people would do is they would try to tear someone's script to shreds in order to make themselves feel better about their own. And it made it hard for me to understand if how valid are the notes that I'm getting, and how much of it is something just needs to be torn up. And so it was a lot harder to trust the notes as part of the process.
I could see that in an industry that's more Hollywood, and
yes.
Opposed to something that's more creative, for lack of a better phrasing. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Where I think that there is a camaraderie in theater.
Yes.
Because you build that. You just you become a family.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you can say I would say once the ensemble is assembled, if you will, because I think that there's still in the audition room,
totally,
first stage, you're still going to have that,
mm-hmm.
But not. I don't necessarily see. Maybe I wouldn't see that in a playwriting aspect. I don't know. I could be wrong.
The competition.
Yeah, the competition aspect, but I don't.
So I think one of the things we've talked about as a group is if we have 11 playwrights there and we know we are competing for one slot, then I think it changes the dynamic of we're not talking about work that is now being staged. We're talking about like the workshop process.
Right.
And again, how gracious are people going to be with their feedback? I think changes. And so this group has actually been really gracious and really thoughtful with their feedback, with the things they have to say. So yes, it is different, and it would be completely different if we were speaking in Hollywood terms, of course.
Sure. Yeah.
But I think part of the culture that has been established is that we, provided that we do the work, we will get our work on stage.
Sure.
And that each of the other people's success is my success as well.
Was Boney part of your group?
Yes, he was. Boney. Well, Boney, I graduated with Boney from USC.
All right. Oh, okay.
So Boney was there with me. We were part of the same class. I love Boney.
Yeah, he's great. He's great.
Yeah.
So where did the where did the publication come into? How did you? Was that part of the same gentleman who got
yes.
you? Okay.
Dr. Jorge Huerta, he contacted somebody and said this play should be on your radar, and it ended up in a Best American Short Plays anthology.
Okay.
It's I think still probably one of my better plays. It's a one-act play, but what I like about it is that it moves very, very quickly. It's I think 38, 39. It's under 40 pages.
Okay.
And so it has to it moves. It has to very quickly move.
And that was considered a short play to be put in that publication?
I mean, it's a one act.
Sure.
Yeah, it's so it not some of them were like 10-minute plays, but some of them were, a full act.
Sure. There's a few of the older what's it called? Volumes, or a few back there, like from the 90s and whatnot. But I don't remember ever being like quite that long. So I mean, but it's been a long time. I mean, that's been a publication that's been around for quite a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So, how is the rehearsal process going? Outside of I mean, I know you've gotten the young girl who's really helping you out. But,
yeah, I think it's been great. I think we've really got a bunch of people who are excited by the challenges that come with putting a play like this on stage. From the actors to Fidel Gomez, who's directing the play, he is a gamer, and so he understood this, I think, from the jump. Very early on in this process, he's been attached to this play since we've been workshopping, and he has always talked about thinking of the set of this play almost in terms of an interface more than a traditional set. The designers have really been wonderful. We did a design workshop. I think this was really smart of Fidel, because he said this play is going to be so tech heavy that it's not enough to use just the time that we had for tech. So we took like a weekend where we just had the designers out to play and started getting a sense of, this is what they could do. And they started coming up with some really beautiful projections and lights. And I think that helped him say, okay, this is what this moment is going to start to look like. Let's think of it in these terms. Let's think of it in these terms. We are just finishing up tech, and it's really looking and sounding gorgeous. I think we might just pull off this crazy idea of putting a video game on stage.
Well, as you put it, that's not my problem.
Yeah.
I'm curious. As the designers start coming in and start presenting ideas, did any of that change any of the writing?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there were moments of the script where I would lay something out, and then the designers would come in, and I would say, "Oh, we just see it. I don't need to write it. We just see it. There it is." And so that's been really great.
So is that where a lot of the, as you said earlier when we first started talking, is that where a lot of the references to the game were taken out of dialogue?
I had already taken a lot of that out. By the time we did our workshop in Atlanta, they had come to see we had a workshop in Minneapolis. They came to see it. They requested the script. They loved it. But they said, we love that we do this sort of thing. This is part of what we have, it's part of the sauce that we do. So, but we need it to be a 70-minute. So I think at the time, the play was about 90 minutes. Okay. So in order to make the workshop work, we got it down to 70 minutes. I've since added back, so now I think the play is about 75 pages. But, so a lot of that was already taken down, but there's certainly still more that we're finding, like, okay, we don't need this, or we find this is a little bit too subtle, we need to put our finger on this, we need to do this.
You've mentioned different cities when it comes, where's this jumping around for workshops come into play? I mean, I think this is the first time I've ever heard of anything like this.
So it's been a ride. So it started off. It's a co-commission between Children's Theater and Latino Theater Company. Okay. So Minneapolis and LA. The first workshop we did was in Minneapolis, and then we had done, I think, another pass at the script, and then I was getting notes again from Jose Luis, and he said this is at the time when Children's Theater is having a transition in artistic director because Peter was retiring, and so Jose Luis said, it's too bad timing wise because they are going to be here and I would love to do a reading. And I said, well, when? And he said, no, it's too soon. You can't do a revision. And I said, Jose Luis, tell me when. He said, it's happening in 2 weeks. I would need the revision in a week. I said, schedule it. You'll have a revision. Oh, wow. So I had to get to work, revised it. We did another workshop in LA. Then did another workshop in Minneapolis where it was like a festival of, Generation Now playwrights, which are the idea is Children's Theater is getting other theaters around the country to start writing multi-generational pieces to try to get younger audiences coming to the theater. And because it was a festival, they invited a bunch of other theaters from around the country to come see it. And then Alliance Theater in Atlanta, very quickly, I think it was within a week or two after the reading, was requesting the script, and they wanted to do a reading there in Atlanta. And so we did another workshop there. That was the most recent workshop. And then we're heading into production here now in LA. Will
my guess is the productions aren't going to coincide with one another. Like the run here is not running.
No, the productions will not coincide with one another, but we are hoping that if things go well in LA, that it can grow legs.
But it's still, will it be produced and staged in Minneapolis?
At this point, that's not on the table right now.
But they still made you get it down to 70 pages or 70 minutes.
Alliance did.
Oh, Alliance did. Got it.
And I haven't heard back from Alliance, so we'll see what happens after the LA production.
Would you have added that stuff back in? Like, hypothetically, when you were at an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And you said, hey, look, we need a 70-minute version. Would you have added it back for LA, or did you find that it really helped your piece getting it down?
I added some of it in, and the stuff that I added back was some of the humor that I think was cut, because I think I that was actually something that I missed. But I didn't miss a lot of it, so I thought if I don't miss it, then it's not worth me trying to put it back in the play.
My guess is it's a straight shoot.
Yeah.
Yep. Just
no intermission.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And usually my writing is about a minute per page, maybe a little bit less. But transitions for this play, we need some transition time because we need to get characters out of their, butterfly wings and their battle costumes into real life attire. Right. It can't quite happen like that.
Sure. Did you have those? Did you consider transitions in this regard on the page, or did it was just like, oh?
I didn't on the page, but that's been a collaboration with Fidel, and I think that he's really done a wonderful job using those transitions, and on like a practical sense of, we need about 35 seconds to change costumes, and using that time instead of dead time to be like, well, let's have this be some storytelling time, even if it's nonverbal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And did that get on? Did that storytelling get on the page, or is just like this?
Some of it has, and I think that as we finish, I'll probably do another pass and incorporate some of that. Mm-hmm. But some of it has been is not on the page yet, at least.
So are you guys just jumping right on April 4th, or are you like doing a week of previews and stuff like that as well?
We have a week of previews starting at the end of this week. So we are
sneaking up.
Yep, it is sneaking up quickly. I actually was texting him the other day. I said, "Are we going to be ready for previews?" He said, "Oh yeah, we're good. We're good." We'll see. I mean, previews are previews for a reason, but I think it's coming together, and I think that starting tomorrow we do our first full run-throughs with tech and costumes, and then see what that looks like and go from there.
Please tell me you're not missing a rehearsal right now just to be sitting in that chair.
Oh no.
Okay, just making sure because I feel awful.
No.
Especially this close to.
No, Mondays are off days. So this worked out great. But I am coaching my son's baseball team and other things, and so I'm there when I can be there. I'm not there every day. And I actually think for my process that's better, because I feel like it gives me a little bit of time to take a breath and say, okay, let me look at this with fresh eyes.
So outside of Level Up, what are you working on right now? This is taking all of my creative energy right now, and I think that I'm probably getting to a point soon where I can take a breath and say what is next. But again, between coaching and this process and full-time job and family and all of that, it's a lot. Yeah. My family was also displaced because of the fires, so it's been an adventure getting home. We're home now, but that's been also, it's been a lot. Yeah, I would imagine so.
Yeah.
So there's nothing like over on the sitting on the corner of the edge of the desk that's like calling your name to break back out and get back to work.
I have some that I think I might want to take another look at. Okay. Probably at the front of that line is a play that I wrote called Disability, and it's a play about a teen with cerebral palsy who joins a rock and roll competition, and has not been produced yet. But I actually think I think it would be exciting to see on stage. It's not a musical, but it is a play with music because it's a rock and roll competition.
Sure, yeah.
But I think I might take another look at that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And besides at the Latino Theater Company, April 4th through May 3rd, where can people find your work?
I'm on the New Play Exchange, so most of my work, or at least samples of it, can be found there. And in the Best American Short Plays Anthology. That's probably the two easiest places.
Okay, and then finally, are you on the socials?
I am, but I don't even know if I can remember my handles.
I can always hunt them down, don't worry.
Okay.
We talked about just the main ones, or Twitter?
I'm on Facebook. Twitter, I'm on Facebook, and I'm on Instagram.
Okay.
But I'm not somebody who posts a lot. I'm somebody who just kind of reads mostly what other people post.
Fair enough, yeah. Well, Gabriel, thank you for coming on to this episode of Playwright Spotlight.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of Playwright Spotlight. Again, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and share this show with your friends. If you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, be sure to leave a 5-star review and subscribe to the channel. And until next time, until we see each other again, keep writing.